I'd now like to examine the risk of being manufacturer-oriented, which generally means being pretentious and boring. Manufacturer-oriented advertising doesn't exactly forget the consumer. It knows what the consumer is for. What the consumer is for is to buy the product. It just doesn't know what the consumer is like. We've taken some actual manufacturer-oriented statements from current advertisements. We discussed whether we should delete names, but for the sake of realism, we have decided to keep them in, to take a risk. I shall now read about £2.5 million worth of headlines. Unlike many, we make only the best. Smedley's prize quality costs so little. If it's pucker luggage, it must be first class. In the field of business and finance, the Irving Trust gives perennial service of professional quality. This is the reason we're known round the country and abroad as the bank for bankers. One of the most important features of this twin tub is the name on the front. The pride you take in owning a Zenith handcrafted TV is only equaled by the pride we take in handcrafting it. People keep saying nice things about us. McVitie's, the name that carries the most weight with biscuit buyers. We added a new word to the language, diversatility, because no other word could properly reflect the polished world of interstate engineering corporations. Discriminating people throughout the world recognize the outstanding quality of Bang & Olufsen products. They will not make do with anything but the best. How Bliss and Laughlin's faultless caster division keeps the world rolling. Contact, the world's largest selling self-stick vinyl surface. Gestetner, the world authority on office printing. The world's greatest value in 4-stroke power mowers. The finest soap powder in the world. Luxoflex, the finest Venetian blind in the world. Quill, the best Venetian blind in the world. Yes, the world's most expensive twist cloth. The world's most versatile lamp at 29 shillings and ninepence. The name on the world's finest blade. Meadows encircles the world. Kirk's pipework flanges and malleable fittings encircle the world. Harrods, foremost for everything. Now, this sort of advertising doesn't forget the consumer. In fact, exactly the opposite. The consumer forgets this sort of advertising. And that is the risk.
So, we have now cast doubts upon the universal validity of one sort of risk, and we proposed a whole new set of risks for us to begin to worry about. Well, is risk, therefore, inevitable? The answer, of course, must be yes. There is bound to be some risk, some irreducible minimum of risk, in any business decision, in any commercial enterprise, in any new advertising campaign. To attempt to eliminate risk altogether, then, is futile. Indeed, as we've tried to show, it's possible to pursue the elimination of risk with such fervor, with such single-minded determination, and with such an acute sense of responsibility that your advertising becomes emasculated, impotent, and ultimately unsuccessful. So if you can't eliminate it, and you shouldn't even try to, then how do you deal with risk in advertising? What is the responsible attitude? We believe that it is the job of the creative man to create, which means to invent, which means to bring into being something that didn't exist before, which means taking certain risks. Now, anyone who refuses to take those risks is, by definition, uncreative. But his risk-taking must be channeled in the right direction. The area in which the creative man can perform must be clearly marked out for him before he begins. Defining the area is the job of market research. Unless it is defined, the creative man cannot really be blamed if what he produces appears to be an irrelevant display of visual and verbal pyrotechnics. Once the area is defined, the creative man should be encouraged to give an uninhibited performance. And in his exuberance, he may well take what we already recognize as being risks, and in trying to find new solutions to familiar problems, he may also bring to light new, unsuspected risks. Now, identifying and measuring these risks is the job of advertisement research.
There are three short points and one rather longer one that we would like to make about advertising research. First, and still surprising to some people, we're in favor of it. Most good creative people now recognize that advertising research, properly conducted and properly interpreted, can give them more help than any invention since the New Yorker. Second, as every brand manager knows, there are no existing research techniques that can tell us, beyond question of doubt, that an advertising campaign will work, or even indeed that it won't. It's futile, therefore, to expect research to do so. We've still got to use skill, experience, judgment, and imagination. We've still got to make a decision. Third, to get valid and useful results from advertising research, far more care needs to be taken in the setting up of advertising strategy. You must define your target group as precisely as you can and as functionally as you can. Since research measures how people respond, advertising strategy should be set in terms of desired responses. In other words, we should say not what do we want to say to them, but what would we like them to think and to feel and to believe after we have finished talking to them. And finally, we would say, let's always be bold in what we test. If we submit to research only those advertisements which we have subjectively decided are likely to be safe and sound, we will learn very little. Advertising research is often not sensitive enough to measure minute differences, and if we ask it to, we will waste time and money. The proper use of advertising research gives us an opportunity to experiment, the opportunity to try out approaches so new and so different and so outrageous that no one in their senses would ever put them untried into the marketplace. Here then is an opportunity to invite risk, to pursue it quite deliberately, and yet to restrict our investment to a few £100. It's often been said of market research that it can lead to sameness in product concepts, sameness in advertising approaches. We believe that advertising research can have the reverse effect and can lead to sharper differences between products, can allow each product to present a distinct personality that makes it attractive to a precisely defined group of people, but only if it is used properly, which is to say, with adventure and with imagination. We have little to lose and a great deal to gain. In the area of advertising research, at least, risk and responsibility seem to go hand in hand.
Well, now we've attempted to show that risk and responsibility need not be in conflict, that they should not be thought of as separate and opposing forces, but as complementary to each other, both working to a common end, which is to seek the greatest return on the advertiser's investment. We suggest, therefore, that we should think in terms of responsible risk-taking. We feel that perhaps we spend too much time worrying about minor risks, the risk that the client won't like an advertisement, the risk that the trade won't understand it, the risk that one or two people might complain about it, the risk that it won't achieve a high research rating. And we feel that we don't spend enough time worrying about the major risk, which is that the advertisement may not be fully effective. We believe in a pragmatic attitude towards risk-taking, and that each risk should be assessed in relation to the particular circumstance that surrounds it. What may be risky for one client may not be so risky for another, and what may be safe at one moment in time may not be so safe 6 months later. In terms of the next 10 years, creative people and research people must work together, not to inhibit, but to inspire creative activity. Unless the individual is prepared to recognize the commercial necessity for responsible risk-taking, he may lose out to a competitor who does recognize it and who is prepared to take risks. In the next decade, in a marketplace that is characterized by increasing competition between brands with decreasing product differences, we believe that the greatest risk we can take is to attempt to take no risks at all.